Race runs. Lift your head. You're on the winning team. You belong to the Merry Marvel Marching Society. March along to the song of the Merry Marvel Marching Society.
Face front, true believers, from the Nerding Out Studios, it is the Merry Marvel Marching Society podcast, an independent podcast done in the mighty Marvel tradition. I'm your host, Jeff Sanguis, and as always, make mine Marvel. Yes. Enough said. How we doing out there? Welcome to the Merry Marvel Marching Society podcast. Like I said, my name is Jeff Sanguis. I'm your host today, and this is issue 2. If you had listened to the first podcast, you might recall that I said it would be issue 1, chapter 1, and I'd be following that up with chapter 2 in an expedient fashion. Well, it's been a while since that first podcast, so I figured, why don't we just move forward? Issue 2. What happened? Server issues, and then I was really sick, and I didn't have much of a podcasting voice. Well, I don't know if I really have a podcasting voice to begin with, but I really didn't have a podcasting voice when I was sick. So anyways, here we are with issue number 2. How's everyone doing out there? Been enjoying the books. A lot of great things going on lately. Hope you've been hitting up the store every Wednesday and getting your favorite books and enjoying Marvel at its finest. Lots of good stuff going on. Age of Ultron has been going on. That's been fun so far. It's getting interesting. A lot of time travel stuff going on in the Marvel Universe right now. A lot of time travel stuff. All building up to something. I'm quite certain of that. I talked about the Uncanny Avengers in issue 1. And that book still killing it. The new issue came out, and it's just great. Rick Remender, hats off to you. But anyways, I'm not here to talk about Marvel now. This issue, we are talking about Marvel then. As promised in issue 1, I said we'd be talking about Astonishing Tales, and we are going to do just that. But you know what? Before we jump into this issue's main topic, I want to talk a little bit about what kind of collector I am. I am the type who heads out to the store every week to pick up his new books, his or hers new books. And I've been doing that ever since the beginning. It's like every week, got to get my new books, stay up on my stories. And I bag them, bag and board if I got boards available. And I put them in the long box or the short box, but the classic white comic book box are stacked up, filled with the comic books. And that's the way I've just been doing it for forever. And I do like to take care of my books. I like them to be in good condition, but at the same time, I'm not buying for speculation purposes. I'm not trying to buy for resale. I'm not putting these things on eBay. I'm not even considering the future. Like, when am I going to sell these books? That's not the collector I am, and that being the case, my new books, when it's a new book, a current title, I want them in good condition. I want them, no bends, no tears, no water damage. I like all my books, bagged and nice. That's just the OCD part of it for me. When it comes to when I seek out back issues, when I delve into books that I didn't have the good fortune to buy when I was younger, or books that came out before I was even born, those books don't need to be near mint to mint. As a matter of fact, when it comes to especially Silver Age books, which I love, they don't even, I actually enjoy a beater, as I call them. Or they call them reader copies. They've obviously been held in the hands of many a person and read, and I love picking up a book, that came out in, let's say 1967, that's obviously, was enjoyed by some kid back when in the infancy of Marvel Comics. And those are my favorite. And the best part about those books is they also are rather inexpensive, because for those older books, if they're not near mint to mint, then they don't hold a great deal of value per se, unless there's something extremely important and occurred in that book that even some low grades, like a good, or what's the lowest grade? Good? I think good's the lowest grade. See, there you go. I'm not even up completely on the lingo. Good, very fine. Those books. To me, if the cover's attached and the pages, there's no pages missing or nothing cut out of the book, then good enough for me. So, that being said, when I seek out old books, I'm seeking out reader copies, beater copies, as I call them. And like I said, you can find those relatively inexpensive, and it's fun because you can really put together a whole run of books, read a lot of these books as they were intended to be read. There's nothing wrong with anthologies, compendiums, trade paperbacks, digital downloads of books. That's all great. Any way you can find to enjoy a Marvel comic is a good thing. But to me, what I really enjoy is seeking out those classic stories or finding cool things in old books, that like a first appearance of something, or an artist's first time on a book, something unique about that book, or just a really cool cover. Seeking out those books, finding them, and actually holding them in my hand and flipping through those pages, because that's ultimately what a comic book is. So that's the type of collector I am. I wanted to get that out there from the get-go. As we move forward now to discuss a book that I stumbled across recently called Astonishing Tales. Now, early on in Marvel's run of putting out comic books under the Marvel banner, they were under a contract that only allowed them to put out 8 books a month. Now, that's a topic for another discussion about why that occurred and what happened with all that. But what's important about that right now is they did a lot of books that featured 2 characters, like Tales of Suspense, Strange Tales. And the reason for this was they had a lot of characters. They wanted to get out there. But like I said, they only had 8 books to do it in. So until they were able to get out of that contract, they would do things like have Captain America and Iron Man share a book together. They had like Nick Fury and Doctor Strange share a book together. So anyways, they did this up to a point where they got out of that contract and were able to move away from that and start giving these characters that could carry their own titles. Now, the reason why I bring that up is Astonishing Tales is a 2-character book, much like those other books like Tales of Suspense. Now, in this case, it wasn't a contract that was putting them in a position where they could only put 2 characters, or had to put 2 characters in a book. At this point, they were taking that model, and they were using it in a different way. They would look at a character and say, I think this character can carry their own book. But just to be on the safe side, let's kind of approach it like almost like a drive-in movie theater. You have your A movie and your B movie. They would take a character that they felt that could carry its own book, but then team that character up with one more character to kind of give the book a little more push, a little more oomph, so to speak. And then if they saw that the stories were taking off, the letters were pouring in from the readers saying, we love what you're doing with this guy here, they eventually would probably just weed out the extra character they had put in there and just give the book exclusively to the one character. And in this case, Astonishing Tales was designed for Kazar. And Kazar had been around actually since the Golden Age. But it was time, they felt, to give Kazar his own book. And they were going to do that with Astonishing Tales. But they were teaming Kazar up with Doctor Doom. So it was a Kazar story and a Doctor Doom story. Which I find to be just... this is what drew me to the book in the first place. Because I was like, man, they gave a supervillain his own comic. I mean, these days, I guess, that doesn't seem far-fetched because the line between villain and hero gets crossed so much. We see supervillains, become heroes over the decades. Like Magneto is a member of the X-Men now, when in X-Men #1, he was their arch villain. So, but back then, that was, to me, revolutionary. You were giving Doctor Doom his own book. Like, you were giving us a villain, someone dark, someone evil. The bad guy was getting his own stories. We thought comic books was just about, the good guy beats up the bad guy. Well, here, it's the bad guy. We're going to be treading some new ground here. So I was pretty excited about that when I saw that Doctor Doom had his own book back in the Silver... Well, technically this book did not come out in the Silver Age. I was about to say Silver Age. This book came out in 1970. And basically 70 is the beginning of the Bronze Age. But this book is very Silver Age. From the fact that I said it's the 2-character type of motif, that 2-character model for a book, Astonishing Tales featuring Kazar and Doctor Doom, and the stories and the creators involved... Kazar by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, right from the get-go. What's more Silver Age than Stan Lee and Jack Kirby? So, and you had Kazar up against Kraven the Hunter from the pages of Spider-Man. And then the backup story, Doctor Doom, was written by Roy Thomas and drawn by Wally Wood. So, I mean, really, this may be a Bronze Age book technically, but it was at the tail end. It was probably birthed out of the tail end of the Silver Age. And the feel, the look, the stories, very Silver Age. Very cool. Big fan of the Silver Age. Now, the Kazar story, it's very standard Stan Lee fare. You have the plot basically involves how is the villain going to cross paths with the hero. Craven, the hunter, decides to hunt Zabu, the saber-toothed tiger that is the best friend, so to speak, to Kazar out there in the Savage Land. And the artwork is Kirby all the way. Very Kirby. If you're not familiar with Jack Kirby, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you were not already familiar with Jack Kirby. So let's just say it's Kirby. You know Kirby. It's comic booky. Kirby's look is all his own, and he set the standard for what Marvel books were to look like for many years. And it's that very Kirby-esque everything. It's over the top. It's explosive. That's the best way to, I think, to describe it. Is Kirby's artwork is explosive. If someone gets punched, there's not just a fist going forward and a body just falling over. No, the arm is swinging on this massive arc, and whoever is getting punched, if there's multiple people getting punched by this one punch, there's bodies flying. Every corner of the panel has a body spinning away from the punch. I mean, explosive, over the top. He took the medium, and what he did with it was, he took the medium and said, hey, this isn't film. We're not trying to do something crazy that you can possibly not do in real life. This is comic book. This isn't real life. So why let the real life restraints hold me back? And Jack Kirby did not let the real world hold him back when he was drawing comics. It was always fantastic, always explosive. And that's wonderful. I love that style. I love Kirby's style, what he did. But what's really cool about the juxtaposition of this book is you have that explosive, over-the-top, cartoon, comic booky Kirby style, and then right side by side with it is Wally Wood style, which in my opinion, it's very reminiscent. When I first saw Wally Wood's work, I was like, Alex Raymond's Flash Gordon, the stuff that Al Williamson did. I got very familiar with Al Williamson because as a Star Wars fan, the Marvel Comics adaptations of the Star Wars films, Al Williamson worked on those, and he obviously also is a product of that whole sci-fi fantasy type of work that Alex Raymond did in Flash Gordon. And Wally Wood, you can see it in Wally Wood stuff as well. And both Raymond and Williamson and Wood all have a realism to their comic book art. It's still very fantastic. It's still comic booky, but at the same time, there's a lot of realism in the work that they put forth. And Wally Wood looks great. His work on Doctor Doom is so cool because where he has that Jack Kirby, created Doctor Doom with Stan Lee and the Fantastic Four. And Wally Wood stays true to that Kirby Doctor Doom mask. He looks like Doctor Doom is supposed to look, because when you think of Doctor Doom, you think of Kirby's Doctor Doom. But once you get away from the mask and you get to the tunic and the cape and the armor, Wood just steps it up and he makes it look real. He finds a way to make this armor look like something very possible. It's just his look. I love his Doctor Doom because Doom moves in a stiff way like he would if he was a man encased in his armor, yet still it just works. It's expressive. It's cool. I mean, I just really love Wally Wood's Doctor Doom. You have to see it. And the writer on the book, as I mentioned, was Roy Thomas. Now, Roy Thomas, to me, in some regards, needs to be up there and really held in the same high regard as Stan Lee. And I know to some people he is, but a lot of people, you hear the name Stan Lee. Stan Lee is the father of Marvel Comics. Sure, and rightly so. But Roy Thomas he was the successor to Stan Lee, and he really, when the company really started to roll and Stan started to see other things that need to be addressed, merchandising and TV and film rights, and just things outside of the realm of comic books. That's where Roy Thomas comes in. And really, once Marvel started to get Marvel got its legs and started to run, that's when Roy Thomas stepped in. Now, the characters were there, things were established, but Roy Thomas came in and played a really integral role on aiming the ship that was Marvel. So, and Roy Thomas wrote this, like I said. It's really cool that he took the character of Doctor Doom and wanted to do something with that character, tell stories about this isn't a sympathetic character. This isn't your standard Marvel story, because Marvel was all about the sympathetic hero. Like Spider-Man. Yes, he's this hero. He has all these amazing powers and he can do things, but at the same time, he's a teenager with teenager problems, and he gets bummed out, he gets sad, and you can relate to that. And that's what always made Marvel Comics cool. Well, now you had a story about a character. This is Doctor Doom. He's a genius. He is a ruler of a country. He's maniacal and egomaniac. Is he evil? Is he not evil? The things he does end up being evil, but what drives him? These are such an very interesting character, the facets behind Doctor Doom. This is where we start to see some experimentation in what makes Marvel so cool. So the story follows Doom as he is... Doom is known for his robots, his Doombots, his robot guards, etc., etc. And Doom is actually working on his ultimate weapon. As he puts it, a super powerful living being fed and activated by cosmic rays and the very lifeblood of the universe itself. And soon the creature will walk and talk and conquer, because he was creating it with his own brain pattern. He was making a robot, a super powered robot that would have basically his mind. So, and which that robot, that super powered robot character, goes on to play a part in the Marvel Universe past this, and that's something else to discuss at one point. But I'm just trying to turn you on to Astonishing Tales. I really want you to check this book out. We also get introduced to the character of Rudolpho, who kind of just comes right into the story. And I went and did a little investigating. I thought, well, maybe this is an established character that I wasn't aware of. But nope, this is the first appearance of Rudolpho, and he feels that he is the rightful heir to the throne of Latveria, and he is running the revolution, working with the rebels, leading the rebels, and trying to overthrow Doom. So, yeah, really cool story. The human side of Doom is explored as we see him interact with a woman named Ramona, who bears a strong resemblance to his love Valeria, his lost love Valeria. And so what drives him emotionally, what drives him as a man. We explore just his side, his maniacal genius with the creation of the ultimate weapon, the robot that would have his mind, and also how he reacts, or how he is as a ruler of Latveria, as he has to react to the rebellion. It's all there. He even removes his mask, and you learn a little something about Doom, just how his ego is he's so driven by ego, but at the same time weak enough that when he removes his mask, he creates an illusion of a perfect face, because he doesn't want to reveal his scarred face, which, says something there. So it's all there. It's a cool story. And like I said, Wally Wood's artwork is fantastic. If you listen to my other podcast, The Jeff Sanguis Show, plug, I talked about Wally Wood and his story, which is a very interesting story within itself. Wally did some work at Marvel. I won't get into the Wally Wood story right now, but Wally is, I think, one of his biggest contributions to Marvel would probably be Daredevil's red costume. But Wally's, like I said, his stuff is fantastic. He is one of the greats, and his work here in Astonishing Tales is great. This particular storyline starts in 1 and it goes for issues 1, 2, and 3. And it's worth picking up. If you are a fan of Doctor Doom, if you are a fan of Kazar, if you're a fan of Wally Wood, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, or Roy Thomas, all reasons to pick this up. And another cool reason to pick it up is if you've ever thought about, like, well, there's so many people out there that seek out those books that are highly touted and expensive. Like, I want, Fantastic Four #1. I want, the first appearance of Wolverine, and fine, those are lofty goals to have or dreams to have or things to aspire to with your comic book collection. But at the same time, there are ways to really enjoy collecting comic books that don't involve just following that path that everyone else follows and buying those same books that everyone else seems to seek out. This is, like I said, this is Astonishing Tales #1, and you can pick this up relatively cheap. If you want it in great condition, you're looking at a book that could cost you, I've seen it go for 20, 30, 40 bucks, but at the same time, I've seen it in real decent shape for as low as $5, $10. I think I got my copy for on sale for 10 bucks, and it's a nice copy. So you can actually go out there right now and start putting together a set. And I'm just looking to get all the Doctor Doom issues of Astonishing Tales, and I believe it went to issue 8. So, you can pick up the first 8 issues of Astonishing Tales for relatively cheap if you're seeking out just lower grade copies. But even at a high grade, I saw a graded copy of it, an 8.0 grade, going for 30 bucks on eBay of the first issue, which is, relatively cheap considering. So if you ever thought about finding new ways to enjoy comic collecting without having to follow the norm, and I really want to get Amazing Fantasy #15 and spend tens of thousands of dollars, you know what? You could spend a lot less money and put together a really sweet collection of cool stuff. Like maybe you just want to seek out buying #1 issues of stuff. Well, here's a book right here. Came out in 1970. Features 2 great characters, you got Stan Lee, Roy Thomas, Jack Kirby, and Wally Wood all working on this book. And like I said, it's a first issue. You can pick it up very cheap. Head down to your favorite comic book store. Go through the back issue bins that they have on. These days, I gotta say, it's kind of hard to find those comic book stores, those classic comic book stores that still have the back issue bins going on. But they exist. They're there. And that's where I picked mine up. The local comic book store over here, not too far from my house. Went through the bin and found it and brought that book home. So there's all kinds of ways to enjoy collecting books, collecting your Marvel comics, and they all don't have to revolve around getting Hulk number 181 so you can have the first appearance of Wolverine. You can put together a really fun collection if you start seeking out new avenues. So if that sounds like a cool story to you, go find Astonishing Tales #1 featuring Kazar and Doctor Doom and put that one in your collection. Pick up the first 3 issues. Read that storyline. Good stuff. And with that, that's going to wrap up this issue of the Merry Marvel Marching Society podcast. If there is something a book or a storyline or something that you want to throw at me that you think that should be discussed here on the podcast, you can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/MMMS podcast. Or you can also remember to swing by the Tumblr page, mmmspodcast.tumblr.com. I'll be posting just cool artwork up there in regards, or in relation, I should say, to the podcast. If you go to the Tumblr page right now, I have some examples of Wally Wood's work from that first issue of Astonishing Tales up there, as well as some other things in regards to the last podcast. So always swing by the Tumblr page for some cool artwork from the books that we talk about here on the podcast. And like I said, if you have any ideas, any suggestions, any critiques, anything you want to talk about, or if you're a store and you want me to check out your store or mention your store on the podcast, especially if you're a store that deals in back issues, because the new books, they're there and they're great. We'll be talking about the new books, but I really don't want people to forget about the history that's there, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s. We're going to talk about all those books, and I want people to know where to find those books, because it's all about the back issue. go find your back issues. Or find them online, you can, Comixology exists. You can go there and you can download books. There's all kinds of actually, I forgot to mention, I guess I should mention, the Astonishing Tales, as far as I can find so far, these books have not been collected in any type of trade paperback. So definitely, if you want them in your hands, you got to go find the individual issues. And that's why it's important for us to get the word out there about stores that sell back issues, at dealers that deal in back issues, at cons, conventions. So, like I said, Astonishing Tales, you can pick up these books, and you can pick them up relatively cheap and have some really cool books in your collection. So, that all being said, that wraps up this issue 2 of the Merry Marvel Marching Society podcast. Issue 3 coming soon. What will I talk about? You'll just have to check back and see. It'll definitely be something Marvel, that's for sure. So, I am your host, Jeff Sanguis. This was the Merry Marvel Marching Society podcast, issue 2. Excelsior!
Stand a little straighter, walk a little prouder, be an innovator, laugh a little louder, stroke a refrigerator, we can show you how to, and when will you be then? You belong to the Merry Marvel Marching Society. March along to the song of the Merry Marvel Marching Society. If you growl, if you groan, with the dour, sour outlook, if you howl, if you moan, you can lose your sour throat from keeping trim and in step with the